Congressman Joe Sestak, always a pleasure.
Hi, Ed. Glad to be back. Thank you.
You bet. Big decision tonight going to be offered up by the president. What do you think from what you know right now? Another 30,000 troops.
Yes, Ed, as you know, and we've spoken before, I'm supportive of this initiative. If the president makes extremely clear tonight that the sole purpose of being in Afghanistan is not Afghanistan, it's Pakistan. A Pakistan that is close to a failed state, has 2,000 scientists who have been trained in the most radical of universities and have access to radioactive material. And if that state fails, and the safe haven of al-Qaeda remains in that state and isn't exterminated, that we will truly have a greater cost in the global war of terror to address than if we do not take that as our purpose now with the 30,000 troops who will be in Afghanistan. But we'll be in Afghanistan solely for the purpose that as we fight alongside across the border of Pakistani army to exterminate the 6,000 of the 20,000 Taliban in Afghanistan, those that are truly radicalized, that we will leave behind as we withdraw under an exit strategy, the probability of conditions inhospitable to al-Qaeda to come back. He has to make that clear to the public tonight.
Well, this is all about al-Qaeda and people who want to destroy the United States, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And is it imperative that we have troops at this level in Afghanistan for who knows how long to protect the United States of America? I mean, that's basically what he's buying into, isn't he?
That is correct. I believe that it is indispensable to have these number of troops if the objective is al-Qaeda. And the reason is that presently the threat is manageable. There's 20,000 Taliban in Afghanistan. There's 25,000 in Pakistan. The Pakistani army is where our strategy, unfortunately, lays in the hands of. If we do not have them continue on against the Taliban in their country, they will shift across the border if we are not there and be able to eventually wreak havoc on Pakistan. Our troops there have to be sufficient along a very porous border in the most rugged of terrain to be able to close that border, so to speak, often by not being on the border but guarding population centers until the Taliban are destroyed by the Pakistani army. And then our economic assistance has to leave the tribal areas there with enough buy-in that they will not turn in the future back to radicalism. Ed, this is a very tough problem, and I understand those that disagree or have doubts about it. But this is different than when the Soviet Union went to Afghanistan and killed 1 million Afghani citizens and gave rise to 250,000 Afghani citizens that fought the Soviet Union. Ed, I was on the ground, and you know that. Mm-hmm. And I opposed the Iraq War. But I honestly believe that 3 to 5 years from now, not doing this, and I mean it's not an open-ended commitment, he must give us an exit strategy in terms of benchmarks that do measure success and failure. And if the failure is what we're seeing in a year or two, then we must trigger an exit strategy to a probably less effective but a containment strategy where you rely upon sensors to shoot, hopefully without a lot of citizen damage from far away. This is a very challenging time for our nation because we've wasted 8 years under the previous administration, and now we are where we are. But I don't believe we can leave a safe haven for al-Qaeda to plan another 9/11 when we know the leadership is there, sitting safely and planning.
So did Bush and Cheney botch it that bad?
Yes, without any doubt. I was on that ground, and I saw in the first few months of the war that we were winning. Not just war. I mean, we were beginning to have edifices of a stable society, one that literally we were building a nation. We took those forces, special operations forces, civil affairs forces, that not only give a template of security, an edifice of security, but also help the nation buy into another way of life. We took them to Iraq, that tragic misadventure. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said 2 years ago, Afghanistan spiraling downward. The head of the CIA said 2 years ago, Al-Qaeda has a safe haven in Pakistan. Shivers should have gone up our back. That war in Iraq harmed our national security, and we're seeing it. The roosters come home now. My concern is, as much as this is a challenge to the rest of our national security fabric, that we have to take this last opportunity, because I believe it will be, even though the cost is large, at less cost than 3 to 5 years from now, not doing this, because Pakistan may not continue if we do not be there, if we're not there.
Yeah. Congressman Joe Sestak, Pennsylvania, here on the Ed Schultz Show, retired admiral, was head of naval intelligence. That was just before you got out of the Navy, is that correct?
I was actually head of the Navy's anti-terrorism unit back as the war began, and then a carrier battle group, and I had the Navy's development, resource requirements development for war.
Do we have the resources for this? I mean, have we retooled, rearmed? Have we capital improvement enough, had the cap improvements to go do this?
The equipment that is on the front line in Iraq, believe it or not, is 40% of all the Army equipment in the world. That is front line, and we'll be shifting a lot of it over there, but it won't all go there because the type of vehicles have to be more nimble. The type of units you want there are often lighter units. You see why the Marines are going in first. They are they're lighter, they're faster, they're more swift. It's a different type of an approach we're having there, mountainous areas. But they will have first-line equipment. The challenge, Ed, is what you, though, brought up overall. The problem with the war in Iraq is that we, back here at home, don't have top-line equipment, nor do we have troops trained for any other contingency in the world. We can't meet any other war plan, like 5027, the war plan to help protect South Korea from North Korea if, heaven forbid, 1951 were to occur again. And so that's the damage Iraq did. It wasn't about Iraq. It was about the damage it was doing to our national security fabric. I argued that's why we wanted a redeployment from Iraq, because there wasn't al-Qaeda there. We brought them there. It wasn't a present danger to us, but I believe Afghanistan is a clear danger. No, excuse me. Pakistan's safe haven for al-Qaeda is. So we'll have the equipment. We'll have the men. The problem is, and Ed, we've talked about this, the strain on the American military families. So this will be one where we are going to suffer a bit more because of the sins that have gone on before. But this safe haven so concerns me because of 9/11 was done by a safe haven they had in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. We have one last chance. I give it a couple years. If we are not successful, then you go to the alternative containment strategy where you're literally maybe outside the country, but you're eavesdropping more, and hopefully you are able to pick up enough sensors that you can pinpoint some strikes. But that's very hard to do. You really want some boots on the ground to make them move and make them communicate when they don't want to, so you pick it up.
Congressman Joe Sestak with us here on the Ed Schultz Show. I've got to ask you the political wrangling of all of this as well. On the eve of the unveiling of the nation's new Afghanistan policy, you got Dick Cheney out there slamming President Obama for projecting, quote, weakness to adversaries, and warned that more workaday Afghans will side with the Taliban if they think the United States is heading for the exits. What's your response to that?
Dick Cheney, you had your opportunity. You ran this nation aground in terms of harming our defense security, our economic security, our health security. Please, this is no time for politics. This president is making a very deliberate, strong decision based upon where you placed him to have to deal with a very weak hand. Mr. Cheney, you've had your time. Step back. And I say that so strongly. This is a hard situation. And the damage they have done, there's no right for them. After I watched our Army literally almost be put into, back here at home, a state of ill repair, that he can speak like he did. This president is respected around the world. He'll make the right speech tonight, but he'll make it clear to all this isn't an open-ended commitment like he gave our securities to Iraq and said it was open-ended, and his president will not do this. He'll weigh the cost and the benefits, and I have great great faith that he will do this right.
Cheney goes on to say, quote, every time he delays, defers, debates, changes his position, it begins to raise questions. Is the commander-in-chief really behind what they've been asked to do?
You know, Ms. Palin came out with a similar statement like that the other day, and I put out a statement saying there is no president that is not behind our military. None. There may be misjudgments like President Bush and Vice President Cheney had, but I believe they were behind them, and I strongly believe this president did. It's almost beyond, I shouldn't even have to address that. This president has thought about this war and thought about the best approach to it. Heaven forbid if someone had spoken up, or if Cheney or Mr. Bush had just listened and been more thoughtful and deliberate before they took us to a war where it was neither a clear nor a present danger.
In this delay, or whatever you want to call it, there has been thoughtful debate and thoughtful and many hours of contemplation on this plan, in your opinion.
Yes, and I say that knowing that when Mr. Rumsfeld came into the Pentagon and the administration took over, there was a chill that went through the top echelons of that Pentagon, where I actually saw that there were those seniors that, because of that chill, probably, in retrospect, wish they had spoken their mind more forthrightly. I believe that chill was probably in the White House also, if it was there in the Pentagon. No, every people I've talked with, and I've had time to sit with General Jones, National Security Advisor, on this issue a number of months back, and he made it very clear everyone is allowed to state their piece. And if someone doesn't speak up, the president will turn to them and say, what's your opinion? He took input. It's now time to move out. As you notice, the report is and I'm glad he's doing this, he's accelerating getting the troops over there, because wintertime is not when the fighting happens. And so he wants the troops there soon enough so they can start winning the hearts and minds in the counterinsurgency of the populations they'll protect, and be ready in enough might to be able to address the horror of the radical Taliban and Al-Qaeda.
Congressman, great to have you with us tonight.
Ed, thanks for having me.
You
Take
bet.
care.
Tremendous insight. Joe Sestak with us here on the Ed Schultz Show, retired admiral.